in response to the Dalai Lama being asked a question, are you going to incarnate again? And he said, I don't know. But if I do, I hope I have a lot of obstacles. Would any of us say that? Like, who would say that, right? I mean, I'm not really raising my hand. I would not say that. Most of us want ease and grace, right? Isn't that the kind of memes that we're hearing? Oh, I just want ease and grace. Yeah, I want it all to be easy. I want it all to be flowy. Something must be wrong with me if it's not easy. If I'm not flowing, something must be wrong. So I better go do the thing that I always do to compensate when I feel like something's wrong, which is fill in the blank. What do you do to compensate when you think that there's something wrong? So I go into fix-it mode. And just like the earth creates pressure in order to create a diamond. Pressure, I think that's really the word. Obstacles create pressure. And that pressure, if you study the work of the Gene Keys, you know that that pressure is part of our evolutionary system. And that creates a breakthrough. So somewhere along the line, I had a breakthrough. It was during a new moon. And if you have downloaded the Moon in You, embodying your feminine leadership through following the cycles of the moon, through living the cycles of the moon, you'll know that there's a new moon statement and a full moon statement. That's free for anyone, whether you're a member or not member, you can have access to that. And I really encourage you to get it so that you can work with these moon statements for the 13 moons that we have in this year. We're coming up to the second one of the year, our first new moon. So it was on a new moon that I made a new moon statement. And what was coming through in the process that I describe inside that PDF is that the world is my oyster. In spite of all of that, something broke through my consciousness and said to me, the world is your oyster. So I started to take it on. I started to repeat it as a mantra. I started to do things that I didn't even think were related, kind of like how Steve Jobs took a calligraphy class and then all of a sudden it leads to like fonts on the Mac. Like it's non-ordinary, it's not linear, it's serendipity and surprise. So that's what happened. And that ultimately came to this word here that I'm going to share with you. The world is my oyster. What is the world is your oyster? It's a phenomenological, existential context for living. You can't name it, I can't teach it, but I can point to it. Just my speaking to it creates a listening in you that wakes up parts of you. I have an example for you. Learning to ride a bike. So it's fundamentally impossible to learn how to ride a bike by studying how to ride a bike. All the studying in the world's not going to yield you the actual experience of riding a bike. Is that true? Even practicing riding a bike is not actually riding a bike. What yields riding a bike is an existential, phenomenological moment in time, this is important, in which a shift in your existence as a human being occurs. And you thought it was just riding a bike. It's not. It's that moment in which you get balance. You understand through experience, through being, balance. You get it. You didn't learn about balance and then got it. You did balance. You didn't study balance. It's literally the moment in which balance as an occurring happened. It descended upon you. And before that moment, you were not a bike rider. But after that moment, and for the rest of your life, probably, you remain a bike rider. So you see that there was one world, and that's the world of not being a bike rider. And then there's another world called the world of being a bike rider. And what separates those two is a phenomenological, existential happening called getting balance. So to get it, we have to learn what is in the way of not getting it. So you could be one who's studying it and you're wondering, why am I not getting it? Because you could be on a different path that doesn't yield to this experience. The best way to look at it that I found that I'm presenting here is that it's the distinction between life as it is versus life as it should be. That's what I'm going to submit to you is in the way of experiencing the world as your oyster, as a way of being. Stepping over here from the world of here, from the world of cause and effect, from the world of manifestation, from the world of affirmations. None of it's bad. That's not bad. From the world of silver linings, from the world of being positive. All that's there in that world. And then what separates you from the world over here, which is the world of your oyster, is the difference between life is versus life should be. Okay, so consider that you and I have a view of life, an unshakable opinion about how life ought to be. And honestly, I'm like the best at that because I have the channel of perfection. So I walk around seeing how things should be. Like today, this guy was selling coconut water on the streets with styrofoam cups. And I was like, I need to go over there and tell him. That's old school. We don't want that. Do you know that that stuff stays in the environment forever? How many can relate to having a world of how it should be? Yeah, thank you for your honesty, because this is what's going to cause the breakthrough. We live in a pretend world, and we're angry that that pretend world isn't the real world, because we're trying to solve a problem. It's not even wrong that we're doing that. We're trying to solve a problem, and the problem is that something is wrong. And in that effort to solve that problem, we are not present. We're not present to reality. We're not present to what is. We are busy in reaction to what is, making meaning about the events, like that guy is going to fuck up the environment if he does this whole styrofoam thing, making meaning about life, and in some way trying to fix what's wrong. So we get angry when life isn't fair or life doesn't line up with how we think we should be. And so we live our lives actually in denial of the way that life actually is. And we go around telling ourselves a story that we're totally grounded in reality. When actually we are not. We are projecting onto the world what the world should be. And we are no longer in the space of the world is my oyster.